The views, opinions, and representations expressed on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network and its website are those of the hosts, guests, and participants, and are not necessarily those of or endorsed by the network, its affiliated stations and broadcasts, the management, other hosts, or advertisers of the network. The shows found on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network can, but do not necessarily, promote any particular lifestyle, belief, religion, political affiliation, or other personal practice. These shows are for entertainment purposes only and are not intended to treat, diagnose, and/or claim any cure of disease or condition or give any medical or legal advice.
Do you have a paranormal story you want to share on Night Dreams Talk Radio? You could be a guest. Email us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
You're listening to my friend Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio, the best in paranormal radio.
Hello, everyone. My name is James Creechbaum, and I'm filling in for Gary Anderson tonight. He had a family emergency. And his guest tonight is Jane-jorda. Jane, give us a little information, a little brief bio about yourself, please.
Good evening, James. It's great to be on the show. I'm obviously English, as you can tell from my accent, but I've spent most of my adult life in America, and I now live in Florida. I am the author of 5 novels. My latest novel, Wished Hall, will be published in June. I write in the dark romance, historical thriller, and supernatural genre, although all of my novels have a supernatural element to them. I also have a short story collection published, and I'm a trained horticulturist, so I also write for a Florida gardening magazine.
Well, let me ask you this. Where did you get your inspiration for the paranormal-based stories?
Well, I guess over the years, I have experienced certain things, and so starting, I guess, early on, I mean, being British, legends are in our blood, you know, all that sort of history, it has to have some sort of impact. But I have lived in a haunted apartment, a haunted cottage. I've worked in a haunted castle, which was 1,000 years old. And I guess growing up in England, ancient buildings were just everywhere, you know, and folklore and ghost stories have always been handed down through the generations. And I guess the older the country, the more history it has, therefore more ghosts.
So you've actually have witnessed an apparition in your lifetime, then?
Well, let me tell you about one of my first experiences. It was in an apartment that I had when I was in my late teens in England, and it was a converted Victorian house, and it was an attic apartment right at the top of the house. And this happened to me maybe a week or so after I moved in, and I had gone to bed, probably fallen asleep for just a few minutes because it was around 11:30 when something woke me, and I sort of just knew that I wasn't alone. Something was in the room, and all the terrifying thoughts that run through your mind when you're a girl living on your own did. I was literally paralyzed. I really wanted to scream, but I couldn't move. I was just terrified for what seemed like minutes, although in reality it was probably just seconds. And then it was gone. The paralysis left me, and I jumped up, and I turned the light on, and there was nothing. Well, you know, I sort of thought, my imagination, you know, I sort of dismissed it, just thought, you know, it was some weird thing happened. And I pushed it to the back of my mind and just tried to convince myself I'd imagined it. But then it must have been a week or so later, my boyfriend at that time stayed over. And in the middle of the night, he woke me up. And he was clearly scared and told me that something had woken him. He said that a man had moved across the room in the shadows, and then the image had vanished. And of course, I'm like, oh, don't be stupid, you know, a man sort of thing. And he's like, seriously, it was a man. I'm sure it was a man. And a few days later, the same thing happened, but this time he was truly panicked. I mean, and he was convinced. He told me that the man had put his hands around his neck and had tried to strangle him.
Oh, my goodness.
I was really unnerved by this because I was living alone in this place most of the time. But to be honest, apart from that first time where I felt that thing in the room, I never felt anything malicious. And I guess even knowing that there was something just in the room that I thought was in the room really scared me, although I wasn't threatened or anything. But then I had a good friend stay over. He wasn't a boyfriend, he was just a good friend of mine, and he slept in the living room. And in the morning, he told me that something, because I sort of said to him, oh, you know, how'd you sleep? And he said, something woke me in the night. And he said, I didn't see anything, but I just felt that something was like hovering over me. And it felt as if I couldn't breathe properly. And it was just such a weird combination of whatever it was. It just seemed hostile, really hostile to any males, any men in the apartment, almost as if it was trying to scare them away. Well, and, you know, I mean, I was really young, and I moved out of that apartment a few weeks later, and so it just became sort of history, so I didn't think much about it.
Maybe that spirit had a little crush on you and was jealous or something.
I don't know. I mean, it you know, obviously back then I wasn't really thinking too much about that sort of stuff, and it's only in, you know, later as I got older I thought more about it and thought, wow, that was a really odd thing, you know, and I just like pushed it away and pushed it to the back of my mind. But it was in 2004 that actually started me on my writing career, because I stayed in Exmoor, which is in the southwest of England, and that's where a few of my books are located around. And I rented an old house on Exmoor. And, I mean, the place was ancient. I mean, it was really old. It had foundations going back to the Roman times, and it had all this history associated with the house. But the house was really haunted, and the first night I happened to be looking in a mirror, and a closet door swung open behind me, which, you know, not just like opened, fell off the latch or something. It just like swung open like someone had opened it with force. And so that obviously got me thinking something was there. And then over the next few days, odd things happened in the kitchen. There were 2 large walk-in pantries, and there was evidence of mice in there. And as I had other relatives staying, we all agreed to keep the doors shut and not use these pantries. But every time I walked into the kitchen, the pantry doors were open, and everyone insisted that they had not opened them. Then a relative told me that as she walked along the hallway to the bathroom in the middle of the night, it felt as if something was tugging on her nightclothes. Which, you know, I mean, all these sort of things sort of added up. And it was only, you know, I mean, when you just suppose something is going on, you can feel less haunted. But then the caretaker stopped by, and he sort of confirmed these stories, and he told us the stories of a young girl that was often seen in the master bedroom staring at a wall, the exact place where a window used to be before it was bricked up. And he also mentioned that other guests reported they often felt something or someone pulling on their clothes. And obviously his comments confirmed that there was a ghost. And, you know, obviously there was more than one in that old house.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. If that house is 1,000 years old, there must be layers upon layers of many spirits. Has any of these spirits in your history ever followed you from place to place?
No, thank goodness, and I hope they don't. No, that would really freak me out, I think. No.
Okay. So none of them's ever followed you anywhere. Have you ever been really...
No, I hope not.
and none of them has ever attacked you or anything, nothing bad, they just kind of let you know they're around, I guess.
Yes, I think that. I mean, I've worked in a castle, like I said, and, you know, obviously castles generally always have many ghosts, and it always, you know, the castle had a famous grey lady who I never saw, but was always seen walking down the staircase. But my experience at the castle happened in the billiard room, a room to me that always felt just really cold, I mean, abnormally cold. And I always felt oppressed. It was like it was an oppressive room, like there was something, I don't know, just heavy, like the air was heavy in there. Mm-hmm. And one day I happened to be in there. I was working as a room steward, and I happened to be in there alone, and a visitor started to walk through the doorway. But as soon as she stepped over the threshold, she gasped, and she was like, I can't breathe, can't you see them? They are all around you. And then she rushed out the room. Of course, someone saying that to you is like, what am I not seeing, And obviously, I couldn't see anything. But when another room steward came along, I told him about the experience. And he told me that she probably saw the grey people, as they had often been seen in that room. And apparently, other visitors, or several visitors, had refused to step into the room. Others had said that they see grey people milling around or can sort of feel something oppressive. They don't see something, but they feel something. So it's obviously there was something there. And but like I say, I couldn't see it, but I felt whatever it was.
Yeah, and I can just tell people, a lot of people don't realize how many spirits actually follow them around or around them. If people could actually see or know how many spirits around them, they would have a different view on things, one way or the other, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure.
But another thing that people don't realize is the land. Especially in England, the land could be haunted. You could build a brand new house on land, and who knows how much bloodshed or whatever has happened in the history of land. So,
absolutely, yeah. I actually grew up in a small, I guess you could say it was a small village called Ashenden. It was in the county of Essex, and it was famous for a famous battle called the Battle of Assindoun. And the church, the old church, which I think was a Norman church, stood on the hill. And the legend of that church and the battle was that the hill ran with blood because so many people were killed on the hill. And it was obviously haunted. The church was haunted, the graveyard was haunted. It was, just part of the legend of the whole place. So you're right. There's so many stories associated with many old countries.
Right. You never, every time you move into a different place, you never know what you're inheriting, so to speak. You just don't.
That's true. So go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask you, now that when you moved here to the States, have you also noticed that any of your homes or any places you've lived in the States, have they been haunted also?
No, because unlike England, where you tend to live in old houses,